other problem, part of the problem is it becomes a business. Because a lot of these women, they will then start. Do you know what an OnlyFans is?
Yeah.
So they'll then start an OnlyFans, and so men will subscribe to get small messages from them, or to get individualized photos or videos from them, and these women make an extraordinary amount of money.
Yeah.
And it's really quite shocking. So they're making, way more than they've ever made in their life doing this, but yet they're in a committed relationship with a man. And so the man has to deal with the fact that not only is his woman out there, on display, but she's signaling that she's desiring better mates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think your point about some developmental issue is relevant. We do have empirical data on attachment styles. So basically, there are these, they call them 3 different attachment styles, which is an oversimplification, but securely attached. So, do you tend to trust other people? You feel confident in a stable relationship. There's anxious attached, which is you're always worried your partner is going to leave you or cheat on you, or maybe you have a history of partners leaving you or cheating on you. And then there's what's called ambivalent attachment style, where there are people, both men and women, who they don't really want an intimate romantic relationship. They kind of avoid, if someone gets too close, they kind of push them away. And in studies of infidelity, the securely attached have the lowest rates of infidelity, and my guess probably the lowest rates of these Instagram posts or OnlyFans vocations. Whereas, and then the second is the anxious attached, but the most is in terms of infidelity rate is the avoidant attachment style. And so women with that avoidant attachment style are also likely to be high on narcissism and probably engage in that behavior. And also,
could you please explain avoidant attachment?
Yeah. So these are people who don't like close, intimate relationships, and so they avoid them and try to be. If it gets too close, they push them away. They want to maintain their independence. And so even if they're married, there's this distance. There's always this pushing away of the other person and of intimacy, psychological intimacy with that other person. And so these are, women who are more likely to engage in short-term mating and more likely to have affairs if they're in a long-term mateship.
Now, has there been studies done on those type of people? Is that because those women have experienced abusive relationships in the past and they're worried about being committed to someone because that person then starts to put restrictions on them and gets very jealous and very mean to them?
It's a good question, and we don't know. So there's some speculation. So the dominant thinking, which I don't necessarily subscribe to, is that it really stems from the mother-infant attachment bond. So if you have like a mother or other parental figure who wasn't there for you, who was erratic and so you couldn't rely on them, then the notion is that the infant learners, they can't rely on other people, so they better do stuff by themselves or on their own.
That makes sense.
And the idea is that attachment style, which some claim gets fixed in infancy, then carries over into adulthood when you form romantic relations. And so the anxious or secure or ambivalent attachment style in infancy gets transported into adult. That's the theory anyway.
Well, that completely makes sense. If your parents were never around, or they weren't reliable, or they're shitty to you, yeah.
The reason I just want to add a note of an asterisk by that is that, there is a correlation. They do find a correlation between the infant attachment style and the later adult attachment style, but parents are also contributing genes as well as environment, and so it might be that the parents who themselves are kind of inconsistent, not there for the kids or whatever, and are off maybe having affairs on their own or whatever, transmit genes to their children that dispose them toward those styles, as well as an environment. And so studies haven't been done to try to disentangle the genetic effects versus these parental effects on attachment style.
Interesting. If you were going to study social media and its impact on dating strategies, one of the things that would be really fascinating is the amount of options. Like if you're a single person today and you have an Instagram page where you're trying to present yourself as an attractive mate, one of the weirder things today is manipulation, right? Like people are using filters and they're using these deceptive tactics that change the shape of their body, change the shape of their face, the tone of their skin. I mean, it's really pretty extraordinary when you see what can be done with these filters. And so there's that, which is to signal to others that they're more attractive than they actually are physically. Then there's virtue signaling in the form of what they write in their posts, whether they're proclaiming their support for climate change or Black Lives Matter or whatever. They're trying to put themselves into a moral high ground position. And then there's the sexually suggestive poses that go along with that. And hilariously enough, oftentimes you have all three of those things combined. Like they're trying to go for the coup de grace. They're in their underwear with their butt up in the air talking about social issues while they're using a filter.
Yeah.
And it's I would imagine that just this platform, whichever one you're talking about, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever, these platforms are fertile breeding grounds for all sorts of pathologies, narcissism, sociopathy, like all sorts of bizarre behavioral characteristics that are encouraged by these social media applications and the impact that it has on people. Like oftentimes, like I'll just randomly scroll through my search feed.
Could I grab some coffee?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will find some person, just an average human being who, takes photos in their underwear, and they have 4 million followers, which is insane.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of people. That's never been achieved before.